Hi, welcome to Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura, and today's video is part of a series I do where I compare books with their movie adaptations. And through these videos, I discuss why the majority of the time, when it comes to the book versus movie, the book wins. Now, having said that, I enjoy watching movies just as much as I enjoy reading books. Like, I love both. So I do give unbiased reviews of both book and movie, I think, for the most part. I also wanted to let you know that this is available as a podcast. And so these tend to be about 30 minutes long, but especially for ones that go over that, if it just works better for you to listen to it as a podcast, they are available. So just search Why the Book Wins in whatever podcasting platform you use. I will also link to them down below for Spotify and Google Podcast. For Spotify and Apple Podcasts, because those are the ones most people use. So yeah, if you would rather do that, those are available too. And before we get into this video, I do want to say that there will be spoilers for both the book and the movie. So if you plan on reading the book or watching the movie and do not want it spoiled, then go do that first and then come back and watch this video. Without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Hi, welcome to Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura, and today I am here to talk about After Yang, which is a short story written by Alexander Weinstein, and it is part of the short story collection called Children of the New World. It was released in 2016. And so if you want to read After Yang, you have to look up the book Children of the New World because it is the first short story in that collection. And then the movie, After Yang, was released March 4th, 2022, and it was directed by Kogonada. And the only way to really see this movie that I know of is to stream it on Showtime. I'm sure it's playing in theaters in some places, like LA or, places like that. But for, the vast majority, we have to stream it on Showtime. So I created an account just to watch this movie, and then I'm going to cancel it before, while my free trial is still going on. So yeah, I've seen people asking, how do I even see this thing? And so Showtime is how you watch it. And now to start with a summary, the book and movie go in different directions with this. And so I'm going to give a summary for the book, and then later we'll get into, the events of the movie and how it's different from the book. So we are in a futuristic world, and we have Jake and Kira who want to have a child, and they decide they want to adopt. Cloning is common. A lot of people have kids that are clones of them, but Jake has a thing against clones and he doesn't want to do that. So they decide to adopt instead, and they want to adopt a Chinese baby because there has been an earthquake, I believe it was, in China in this futuristic world. And so this has caused there to be a lot of kids that need to be adopted. So they adopt Mika, who is a Chinese girl, but they're worried though that because they're not Chinese, they won't be able to connect Mika to her Chinese heritage. And so there is this company called Brother and Sister, Big Brother, Big Sister or something, where you can get a very human looking robot to help raise your child. And so they get a Chinese one named Yang, and he knows all these, information, fun facts about China. And so he can keep Mika connected to her culture. And he also serves as a babysitter, nanny type person as well. And the book starts out with Yang malfunctioning. And so Jake has to take him in, and his warranty is over. And so he has to take him into just a regular company to fix him. And the neighbor suggests his guy, who is more not official. And so he takes him to the neighbor's guy, and the guy tells him he's broken, there's nothing I can do. And so he takes him to another place to get a second opinion. They say the same thing. And so then he brings Yang back home, and then the next day they bury him in their backyard. Before they bury him though, the guy at the company fixing robots was able to take out Yang's voice box, and so he gave him the voice box. And so after burying Yang, Jake puts the voice box up next to a photo they have of Yang with the family, and he tells Mika, tell Yang goodbye. And she says, goodbye, Yang. And then the voice box replies being why are you saying goodbye? Are we going somewhere? And then he tells them a fact about China. And that's how it ends. And so onto the book review. I really enjoyed this story. A big aspect of it is how Jake doesn't want to admit how hard it is to lose Yang and how close they were in that connection. His neighbor asks, he tells the neighbor that Yang broke down, and he's like, oh man, how are you doing? And he's like, oh, it's fine. He just kind of brushes it off. He doesn't want to admit that he's sad about losing this robot. And so he's just acting like it's no big deal, he shouldn't be attached. And then also, like I said, Yang is also a babysitter, and without him there, at the end of the story, they talk about how the neighbor's daughters will be able to watch Mika, and the daughters are both clones. And so Jake is, originally he didn't want to, associate with them because they were clones. And so by the end of the book, he is more accepting of that. And he also is more accepting of his neighbor because the neighbor sees them burying Yang in the backyard. And so then he sends them over some flowers with a note saying, I'm sorry for your loss. And he's touched and surprised that his neighbor did that because he just was judgmental of his neighbor because he has clone daughters. And then also it talks about how the neighbor will paint his face for football games. And so Jake is like, he's a guy who paints his face. Like, I can't open up to him about my grieving process that I'm going through right now. But he was proven wrong in the end. And I did really enjoy this story, and I wish there had been more because it was so interesting. However, I think ultimately I liked it the way it was, though, and it worked really well just as a short story. And I actually went into Children of the New World planning to only read after Yang. However, I loved it so much that I read all of the stories in the book, and they were all amazing and fascinating and so intriguing. They have like a Black Mirror vibe because Black Mirror, the episodes are all about technology in one way or another. And same with this, all the stories are in, this world where we are overrun and overdependent on technology and lacking human connection. And each story is different, but they all do focus on children in one way or another, hence the name Children of the New World. And yeah, there's a tough story early on about a man who, the lengths he's willing to go to keep his family afloat financially. And then there's another one where a couple is grieving the loss of their children. But that's all I can really say because if I explain how they lost their children or anything, it's spoilers. So I don't want to get into that. But that one was really interesting too and kind of was similar to After Yang in some ways. And then we have a few stories that are about people who are trying to find fulfillment and the deeper meaning to life. And they're trying to find it through technology in one way or another, when really, they had it all along with the people in their lives, but that wasn't good enough for them, and they chose to go the route of using technology to find this, transcendence or whatever, a meaning in their life. And yeah, so ultimately, I would say you should definitely read this book. If you like Black Mirror, I think you will definitely enjoy these stories. They are all very different enough, while also being similar in the futuristic ways. And some of them have some similar themes going on as well. But I loved it. I read the book really quick. It's like 250 pages, and it was a number of short stories. None of them, I read on my Kindle, and the longest one was like a 20-minute read. So most of them are 10 to 20 minutes. So yeah, highly recommend Children of the New World. I will say as a disclaimer or as a heads up to those who decide to read this, there are a few stories that involve sexual things because that's part of this new world is where people want to satisfy their sexual desires, quickly. And a lot of times it's through your avatar online. And in one story, he lives with his wife, but they never physically touch. And the only time they have sex is online. And so yeah, just different things like that come up a few times. So to talk about the movie, right off the bat, I'm going to say that I just didn't really connect with this movie and I just wasn't really feeling it. Part of me was maybe I'm just not a deep enough person to get what the movie is trying to do and what the movie is putting out there. And that could very well be the case. I read plenty of reviews of people who loved this movie and were very touched by it. And yeah, it's touching. I guess I wasn't moved by it personally. And when I was reading other reviews and watching other reviews, trying to figure out what I felt about this, the review I connected with the most was the one by Fish Jelly Film Reviews. And I will link to them because they do movie reviews and I like them because they get into the spoilers, which you don't often find that. But yeah, so you should definitely check them out. And their video for After Yang, I really enjoyed watching. So you should definitely watch it if you don't mind spoilers, which if you're watching this, it's going to get spoiled anyway. But anyhow, they gave this movie a 1 star, and I did not dislike it that much. However, I did agree with a lot of the things they said about this. It's just, there was too much going on, and yet they could have focused in more to make a more interesting story, but instead they have all these different things going on. And then the acting by a lot of the people was just very wooden. And it seems like that was intentional in the way the director wanted them to act. I don't know. And then the chemistry, especially between Kira and Jake, you just are not feeling that. This movie was slow, but I didn't hate it, which we will get into. I'm going to be referencing the Fish Jelly Film Reviews a few times throughout this, so I wanted to mention them here first and recommend their video. So onto the acting, we have Colin Farrell, who is in the lead role of Jake. And I know I said that I agreed that the acting was wooden by a lot of the characters. Farrell, in some scenes, he was great. There's a scene where he's talking to Yang about tea and why he's passionate about tea. And he was great in that scene, very powerful. And he had good chemistry with Yang. And maybe that's the point, because a lot of the scenes with Yang had good chemistry with the other actors. Whereas when the other actors were interacting, they didn't have chemistry. So is that the point? Like, people only had chemistry with Yang and that's how vital he was? So maybe that was intentional. But his acting is very like subdued and subtle, because it's not the kind of movie where you have like big emotions, I guess, you know? And so Farrell is good considering what Kogonada was wanting to do with this movie by making it more subtle and quiet. And it's in these quiet moments that you need to convey what the character is feeling. And Farrell does have some great scenes too with the girl who plays his daughter, Mika. And so I thought some of those scenes were sweet and they, you know, well acted. Jodie Turner-Smith plays Kira, and she was probably my least favorite. And I think part of it is Kira, we just didn't delve into her character enough. And so the only time we see her is when she's interacting with Jake, Colin Farrell, and the two of them just did not have the chemistry. She just seemed annoyed with him for a lot of the movie, which, yeah, I don't know. So there just wasn't enough to her. I wanted to see more. And maybe that's the bigger problem. It's not with Jodie Turner-Smith, but it's just with the character development not being there. And the movie does focus on Jake and Yang. Yeah, she just didn't have very good chemistry with any of the characters, so that's my biggest complaint with her. Justin H. Min plays Yang, and as I said, he does have good chemistry with the other people he's acting with, and he does a good job portraying someone who is a robot and trying to, they're a robot, but they're trying to figure out who they are and what they are and what they're connected to and what they're drawn to. And the scene with Colin Farrell, again, where he's talking about how he envies the passion that Colin Farrell has for tea because he's not capable of that. And then he has the conversation with Jodie Turner-Smith, Kira, about, like human existence, kind of. Yeah, he was good. I thought he conveyed that emotion well of this technosapien is what they're called in the movie. So yeah, trying to figure out who he is. And then Malia Emma plays Mika, and she was adorable. I thought she was great. Her character is pretty spoiled at times, but she was sweet. And she and Colin Farrell have a couple cute scenes where she's getting up to get the water, and then you have the scene at the end. And yeah, I thought she was cute, and I thought she was well cast. So the movie makes some big changes, which of course it's to be expected because it's based on a short story. So if you're gonna make this be a full movie, you have to make some changes. And so the biggest change is that Yang has a past, basically. And so when he breaks down the guy who is, looking after Yang, he gives him this little part that has all of Yang's memories because he has recorded like 10 seconds of every day. And so he somehow chooses what the most relevant or important 10 seconds are. And so those are all filed in him. And so a big part of the movie is Jake watching these memories and learning about Yang and Yang's past. And this scene was cool because his memories, when Jake is looking at them, it's like they're stars, but they're like organized stars in a galaxy. So that was really pretty. And Jake learns that Yang had been with this older woman, and then this older woman had this younger relative come visit, and Yang kind of fell in love with this younger girl. She wasn't young. The lady he's looking after is an old woman. And so this other younger woman comes by to, spend time with this relative, and he sort of falls in love with this woman. She ends up dying, I believe. And then Yang, though, the woman who dies gets cloned, and Yang happens to meet the clone. And so the two of them have an instant connection because of that. Even if Yang doesn't consciously remember his past, it's still in there, just like she's a clone. And so it's not like she remembers meeting him, but it's still in her somewhere. And so they start this like semi-secret relationship. And so that's also an element to the movie, is Jake learning about Yang forming a friendship, or I don't know if he was in love with the clone, but anyway, just learning that Yang had more human-like emotions than he thought originally. And so in the book, when Jake takes Yang to the guy the neighbor recommended, the guy says that he can keep Yang since he's broken, and he can like use the parts or something. And Jake does not want that being done. For one, the guy is racist towards Asians. And so Yang was like a member of the family, and he doesn't want him taken apart. But two, because like this guy's a racist against Asians, and so he doesn't want him messing with Yang. And then he takes him to, the next place, the corporate place, and they give him the voice box, and they offer to take and recycle Yang. But again, he doesn't want to, because Yang was part of the family. He doesn't see it as a machine to be recycled or taken apart. And so he's like, no, give me the voice box and then I'll take the rest of it back with me. And then, as I said, they bury him and like have a funeral for him. And there's a similar thing with the movie because Jake meets a woman played by Sarita Chowdhury, who was in The Green Knight, and she was awesome. And here she plays like a curator, researcher for this museum that researched technosapiens. And she wants to put Yang on display. And because he has memories, she's like, this is so rare and unheard of because most technosapiens aren't recording things from their days. And so the fact that Yang has this, she's like, wow, like I've been researching these my whole life. Like this would be incredible to add to my museum here. However, similar to the book, Jake declines and he doesn't want Yang put on display for like people to look at because Yang was someone they were close to. And especially as the movie goes on, he learns that Yang was more, human-like than he had thought. And so the ending, as I said in the movie, Yang is still like part of the family in a weird way because he has his voice box. And the last scene in the movie is Yang talking to them, telling them, about, this random fact about China. And so it seems like he's still part of their family in a weird way. And in the movie, this isn't the case. They don't keep his voice box, and I guess they have his memories. I don't know I think they have his memories still. I don't remember Colin Farrell turning that over. But anyway, in the end, we see Mika sitting next to Jake, and she is singing a song, and it's kind of showing that she and Jake are just coming to terms with Yang not being in their life and just accepting it and moving on. And in the movie, in the book, they were dependent on Yang, like I said, because he would watch Mika when they were at work. And in the movie, that's a bigger thing where the wife is talking to Jake, and she's like, we're too dependent on Yang. This will be good for us to actually spend time with our daughter. So that was a bigger thing in the movie than it had been in the book. And throughout the movie, like I said, Colin Farrell has different interactions with Mika. So Jake has different interactions with Mika, and she comes with him when he's taking Yang to be checked up, which was not in the book. And then, there's 2 or 3 times where she wakes up during the night and he's there. And so it kind of shows their bond strengthening and growing, and she's turning to him, for help getting water instead of turning to Yang. And then in the movie, there is, they seem to live in a world, there's a lot of Asian culture, they're eating ramen. He owns a tea shop. They're wearing more Asian style clothing. And so Fish Jelly Films was talking about this because they were like, it seems like they live in a world where there was a war with China and China won. And so now there's a lot of Chinese cultural stuff mixed in their world. Which in the movie, it doesn't make sense why they felt the need to get Yang when they're living in a world with a lot of Chinese culture already. But it made sense in the book because that wasn't in the book. They weren't living in a world with a lot of Chinese culture the way they are in the movie. So the movie doing that was kind of an odd choice, and I don't understand why they did that. But yeah, in the movie, they don't explain why it's, such a heavily Chinese, Asian cultured world they're living in. But like I said, in the book, the world is futuristic, but it doesn't say it's, there's they've had a war with Korea. However, we don't know who won. And there's just people that are very racist towards all Asians because of this Korean war. I think I said that earlier. Did I? Maybe not. But anyway, so there was a war with Korea. And so we do know that happened, but we don't know who won in the book. But I know I said I didn't love this movie, but I did want to talk about some of the things I did like. And for starters, it is a very beautiful film. And I saw another review, I think it was Movies and Munchies, where he was saying that there's more beauty than substance to this movie. And I can see that because, yeah, there's some beautiful symmetrical shots. And it's just, the movie itself, Colin Farrell described it as being a very meditative movie. And I would agree, it's just very beautiful and quiet and calm and thoughtful, which, by the way, the interview where he called it a meditative film was in the interview he did for Hot Ones, which, if you have not seen a Hot Ones interview, it is a show with hot questions and even hotter wings because the interviewer, he has great questions, and then he interviews the celebrities while they're eating progressively hotter hot wings, and some of them are crazy hot, and so celebrities almost always have some kind of reaction. They are the best interviews you will ever watch, and Colin Farrell's was fantastic because I already liked him. He's an amazing actor. And that interview just made me like him all the more because he just seemed so genuine and he just seemed like an awesome guy. So you should definitely check out that interview he did. And check out other Hot Ones videos because they're amazing. But yeah, so I did like the meditative feel and the calming feel that this movie had. It wasn't as engaging because of that for me personally. So there's that. But I did love the intro scene, maybe not the intro, the credits scene, where it shows them they're logged on and they're competing against other families doing this choreographed dance competition. And I thought that was a fantastic scene. I love seeing them dancing. It was just a great, fun way to start this movie. It's interesting because that intro doesn't really reflect the rest of the movie in a lot of ways. So it's an interesting choice in that respect because it's just very engaging and fun and interesting. Whereas the rest of the movie, like I said, is like very calm and meditative and quiet. So an interesting choice for the credit scene, but I did enjoy it and I thought it was a really fun intro. So on to book versus movie. I mean, as far as Children of the New World, the book, versus After Yang, I like the book better. But then if I'm comparing just the short story After Yang with the movie After Yang, it's hard to compare in some ways because it's a short story, so there's not too much to it, relatively speaking, and the movie just had to add more. But I guess my problem is I wish that they could have gone in more interesting directions with this story though, because yeah, the short story, it provides you with a foundation, and then Kogonada decided to take it in the direction of him learning about Yang's past. For the most part, that's like what it's doing. And I just didn't find that to be the most intriguing thing. I thought it would be more just about grief, which it is, you know, and the ending scene shows that they are like at peace with their grief, I guess, in a way. But it just doesn't, like if we're comparing it with movies about grief, you know, Pig came out last year, which was incredible. And that one, the ending was so much more impactful, and the movie as a whole was just so much more impactful and engaging and strong than this was, than After Yang. So if, as far as movies about grief go, Pig was so much better. Whereas this one, it didn't explore the grief that much. For the most part, it just explores Yang's past, which honestly wasn't too interesting. And they're exploring like what it means to be human. And there was a great quote where he's talking to the clone that Yang had been friends with. And Jake asks her, like, did Yang ever talk about wishing he were human? And she responds saying, you know, that's such a human thing to think, to just assume. It's so human to assume that all other things, all other beings want to be like you. And so the pridefulness and self-centeredness of humans. So I thought that part was interesting. But yeah, ultimately, I guess I would say I like the short story better. Because yeah, there wasn't much to the short story, but I did enjoy it and how Jake is struggling with his grief and accepting his grief and showing his grief over the death of a robot. And yeah, the movie just didn't explore and go in directions I thought would be more intriguing, you know? So ultimately the movie just kind of fell flat for me in some ways. I don't regret watching it, but I don't see myself ever watching it again. Whereas Children of the New World, those were fantastic short stories and I would definitely read them again. They really get you thinking and there's just some bizarre scenarios in there too. So yeah, would definitely recommend that. But yeah, I guess that wraps it up for After Yang. Which another minor change I didn't mention is that in the movie, Yang is still under warranty, whereas in the book, his warranty was over. I don't know if that matters that much, but that was a change between the two. Anyway, that is After Yang. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought of the movie if you've seen it. And if you've read this book, not many people have heard of this book, and I was trying to find first edition copies to buy, and I did find one, so I'll probably be getting it, but it wasn't as readily available and there weren't as many copies as I had thought there would be. So this book should definitely be getting more recognition than it does. And so I'm glad this movie came out because having a movie made of your book is the best publicity there is, right? So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment all your thoughts down below. And yeah, I know there's people that really loved this movie, so I'd be curious. I mean, I read reviews online of people who loved it, but I'd be curious what your personal reason is for liking it, or your personal reason for not liking it. Thank you for watching, and definitely check out Fish Jelly Film Reviews. They have more subscribers than I do, but still, if you haven't heard of them, go check them out, and especially their After Yang video I will link to, and I just thought it was very entertaining hearing them talk about it and why they didn't like it. But anyway, that is all for now. Thank you once again, and I will see you next time.